I got so much motherfucking design on right now.
Break it down, bring it back, make it clap. I got 3 old thoughts, new block, where that thing. Bitches on my line, and you know.
So welcome everyone, to all of you watching. So help me welcome to our new topic. The topic of today is all about the French Revolution. So as you can see, there are 2 subtopics, and these are the French Revolution begins, and the second one is the Revolution brings reform and terror. So this will be discussed by yours truly and Rado Chris. So here is the objectives of today's lesson. So A, to explore the causes and consequences of the revolutions. So as we go along, we will know or to explore the cause and the consequences. As, examine the impact of the revolution on France and the world. And lastly, to understand the timeline and key events of the French revolutions. So here is the introduction of the French Revolution. So the French Revolution is a 1789 to 1799. So French Revolution is a period of political and social upheaval. So as we go along, we will know why it is a political and social upheaval. So the French Revolution led to the end of monarchy and also the rise of Napoleon. So Napoleon will be discussed to the another group. So here is the timeline. So which is May 5, 1789. So it is the States General that convenes for the first time since 1614. When we say State General, it is a kind of law-making group without much democratic influence. So it is convened with the first time since 1614. So in June 20, 1789, the storming of the Bastille takes place in Paris, marking the beginning of the end of the monarchy's control. August 4, 1789, the National Assembly adopts the August Decrees. So when we say August Decrees, it is an August. So which abolished the privileges and feudal rights of nobility. So lastly, August 26, 1789, the National Assembly dissolves the monarchy and declares a republic. So now let's proceed to the people to identify. So in the left, we have here Louis XIV. So Louis XIV is a king of France. He also known as the Sun King. While in the right is the wife of the king, which is Marie Antoinette. So Louis XIV, also known as Sun King, as I've said earlier, was the monarch of France from 1643 to 1730. So he was a powerful and influential ruler who centralized the government and expanded French territory. So during his reign, he was known for his lavish lifestyle and the patronage of arts, so which contributed to the cultural splendor of the period. So Louis XIV also built a palace of Versailles, which became the center of political power. So Louis XIV was a symbol of the absolute monarchy, and his reign is often associated with the peak of French power and influenced Europe. Next is Marie Antoinette. So Marie Antoinette, on the other hand, is the wife of the Louis XIV. So, and the last queen of the France before the French Revolution. So she was born in Vienna in 1755 and married Louis XIV in 1770. Their marriage was convinced, not love. It is because their marriage was designed to strengthen the alliance between the two countries. So her reputation suffered due her perceived extravagance and sensitivity of life of French people, which contributed negative public opinion of the monarchy. So she was known for extravagant lifestyle, and love for fashion and arts. So, let well, before we will tackle the French Revolution begins, we will first tackle about the old regime. So the old regime is a social and political system which existed in France during 18th century. So it is the characteristic of old regime is an absolute monarchy, social hierarchy, and also lastly the economic inequality. So when we say absolute monarchy. So France was ruled by the absolute monarchy, which is the King of France, Louis XIV. So with the king holding centralized power and making the decision without significant checks from others institutions. So Louis XIV epitomized this style of rule during his century. While the social hierarchy is the society divided into three distinct privileges, three distinct states. So which the first one is a the first estate was a clergy, the second what is nobility, and the third one is encompasses of common people. So this hierarchical structure perpetuated social inequalities and restricted upward mobility. So the last characteristic of old regime is an economic inequality. When we say economic inequality, it is an economic disparities were dominant with lower classes, which is facing unheavy taxation. So when we say lower classes, these are the third estates. So while the nobility and clergy enjoyed exemptions, so the nobility is the first and the clergy was the second. So the economic system here was a feudal in nature, with peasants working the land and providing goods and services with the privileged classes. So let's tackle the estates, the three estates in the under social regime. So the first one is first estate. When we say first estate, it is a clergy. When we say clergy, it is including bishops, priests, and other church officials. So Catholic church clergy, as I've said in the presentation, it's own 10% and pay few taxes. So they pay few taxes. So the second one is the second state is the nobility, which is the group included aristocrats, both high-ranking and low-ranking nobles. So they had their privileges, including exemption from certain taxes. So it has an economic inequality. So the third estate, when they say third estate, is everyone else. So it is the largest common people or the largest estate. It's because his percent or its percent is 97 of the people are peasants, urban workers, or middle class. So despite of being the most populous of the third estate faced heavily taxes but had limited political power. So this economic inequality is an economic inequality of these three estates are prominent, or the only working hard is the third estate. Not it's because they paying taxes due of the economic inequality. So next one will be estate general. So as I've said earlier, that estate general is a kind of law making group without much democratic influence. So it is the voting, thus people make an unhappy voting present. So in this voting was done separately by estates. So they separately done by estates. So the first and the second class, or the first and the second estate, as the privileges always overruled any laws, while the third estate was doomed for a vote to 1. So thus most people are unhappy with the conditions of France. So most people are unhappy. So this one is presenting the third estate. So they are not happy because they are paying more taxes than the first and second estate. So the economic condition under the old regime is that the French economy was based on agriculture. So they plant or they farm. So the peasant farmers of France bore the burden of taxation. So the poor harvest means the peasant had trouble paying their regular taxes. So certainly they could not afford to have their taxes raised. So the third estate, which is the peasant and other common people, have a burden in taxation. It's because they paid a taxes. They paid a taxes if they didn't work hard. So the poor harvest, or they didn't work hard. The harvest mean the peasants had trouble paying their regular taxes. So they are paying their regular taxes all that time. So the economic conditions were challenging this time. So with peasants bearing the burden of taxation and facing difficulties during poor harvest. So with this, the bourgeoisie often managed to gather wealth. So it is too wealthy, but resented paying taxes while nobles did not. So they were upset because the third estate only paid more taxes while the nobles are not, or the first estate. So let's welcome to the first revolution begins. So the first revolution begins that comes to France because of the peasants were not so badly off as peasants of a country. So when this happened, people begin to think that maybe improvements can be brought about even faster. So because of peasants, because of the third estate, were not badly off a peasant in other countries. So when this happened, people begin to think that maybe improvements can be brought. So revolution came to France because there are two causes. The first one is the fundamental, which is the long cause, and the second one is immediate causes, which is the short cause to bring it about. So two causes why revolutions happens. The first one is the fundamental cause. So fundamental cause is one that has a deep roots in the past. So rooted in the past. So it rooted in the past. While immediate cause, it is directly prompting action. So for example, a person is fired from his or her job. What is the fundamental cause? The fundamental cause here is the person is often late to work and is generally unproductive on the job. While the immediate cause to this is the person fails to show up for work and does not call the employer. So in short, revolution happens. It's because of the two causes. What are those? Fundamental cause and immediate cause. When we say fundamental, it is rooted in the past, or the long cause. While the immediate cause, it is the directly prompting actions, which is a strong short cause. So fundamental cause is everything previously discussed. So these are under the economic regime, which is basically the economic conditions where first and second has a privileges of not paying the tax, while the third are paying more taxes. While the immediate cause is the bankruptcy, gear fear, and estate general. So let us tackle why it is the immediate cause of the revolution. So France bankruptcy. So when we say France bankruptcy, it is the bankrupts of France. So then why does the France have bankrupt? So the king lavished money on himself and residents of Versailles. So the king lavished money on himself because the king, as I said earlier, that the king of France, which is Louis XIV, has a lavish lifestyle and a patronage of the arts. So, and residents, Queen Marie and also Queen Marie Antoinette was seen as a wasteful splendor. Why does Queen Marie Antoinette was a wasteful spender? It's because she was known to be an extravagant lifestyle and love of fashion and the arts. So these are the reasons why France have bankrupt. So the government found its funds depleted as the result of wars. So including the funding of American Revolution. So while so the government funds it's not is funds found it's found depleted. When we say depleted, become low. So as a result of the wars, why? It's because privileged classes would not submit to being taxed. So the Estate General called the meet. So why does Estate General called the meet? So Estate General called the meet is because the French bankruptcy made Louis XIV desperate. So the Estate General gave to people a voice of government. So their king needed a money. So what is Estate General again? For those who the state general is a kind of law of making group without much democratic influence. So a state general called to meet, it's because the king wanted or needed a money so that the first, second, and third state will help him get the money. So this so the State General become National Assembly. So the third state, fearing overrule by the privileged orders, declared themselves the National Assembly on June 17, 1789. This marked the beginning of French Revolution and the end of presentation based on the traditional social classes. So, despite of the funds, Louis XIV called a State General a meeting, right? So, giving the people a voice. So this led to establishment of National Assembly. It's because the third state sought a presentation based on the traditional or beyond the traditional social classes. So the revolutionaries won. So the revolutionary ones has a four race, and this is to overthrow the absolute monarchy and establishment constitutional government. They demanded equality, liberty, and also fraternity for all citizens. The revolutionary want to end the privileges of the nobility and the clergy and establish a society based on merit, and they also wanted to abolish feudalism and establish a system of government and presented the people. So in other words, they wanted to have an economic equality. So that's why the French Revolutionary raised. So next we'll have the revolutionary brings reform and terror by my partner, which is Chris Rado, and I thank you.
So, hello and good day once again to each and everyone. This is Chris Serrado, and at this juncture, I will be continuing the report. So, the revolution brings reform and terror to the French Revolution, and it is an epoch making event that took place from 1789 to 1799. It radically transformed France's political and social structure. So, however, this change did not come without a cost. So, from 1793 to 1794, France went through a period known as the Reign of Terror, which was characterized by severe political repression and widespread public execution. So now let's proceed to our timeline. So around 1791, the French Constitution is established, creating a constitutional monarchy. Around 1792, France declared war on Austria and Prussia, leading to the fall of the monarchy and the establishment of the First French Republic. So around 1793, King Louis XVI is executed and the Reign of Terror begins under the leadership of Maximilien Robespierre. So around 1794, Robespierre is overthrown and executed, marking the end of the Reign of Terror. So, the French Constitution of 1791 was the first written constitution in France adopted during the French Revolution. So, it was created after the collapse of the absolute monarchy of the ancient regime and aimed to establish popular sovereignty and constitutionality. So, the drafting process of the constitution began after the Tennis Court Oath and the adoption of the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizens in 1789. So the main controversies during the drafting process revolve around the level of power to be granted to the king and the form of the legislature. The committee initially proposed a bicameral legislature but later settled on a single house legislature. There was also a debate about citizenship, with a distinction being made between active citizens who had political rights and passive citizens with only civil rights. So the French Constitution of 1791 established a separation of powers. So the National Assembly serves as the legislative body while the king and royal minister constituted the executive branch. The judiciary was independent of the other two branches. The Constitution also abolished feudal geographic division and divided the French state into administrative units called departments. So, around September 21, 1792, it was invalidated due to the abolishment of um, the monarchy and the establishment of the First French Republic. Okay, so let us move on. So the second stage of the revolution. This phase was distinct from the initial one as France transitioned into a republic during this period. Furthermore, the reins of leadership were handed over to radicals, extremists, who represented the proletariat or the masses in Paris. Lastly, the revolution escalated in violence and bloodshed, commencing with the king's execution and the September 1792 massacres, and culminating in the Reign of Terror from 1793 to 1794. So, like any revolution, the aftermath in France was marked by a series of transformation and fierce rivalry among societal groups. Two French factions resisted the newly established system of limited monarchy. So we have the radicals, extreme leaders of the masses, and the royalists, who advocates of absolute monarchy. So the radical leaders were primarily composed of individuals like Jean-Paul Marat, a doctor and journalist, George Jacques Danton, a skilled lawyer and a speaker, and Maximilien Robespierre, a judge known for his humanitarian principles. So the radical gained the support of the proletariat. The ordinary working class people of Paris were deeply dissatisfied with the results of the new government. So the impoverished population continued to struggle in dire circumstances, which only fueled their growing impatience. Influenced by radical newspaper and propaganda, the people passionately called for the establishment of a republic that would uphold the values of liberty, equality, fraternity. So this powerful slogan became the rallying cry that united the revolutionaries in their pursuit of a better future for all. So, in response to the situation in France, other despotic monarchs from Austria and Prussia, namely Emperor Leopold II and King Frederick William II, swiftly came to the aid of their fellow king. Emperor Leopold II, who was the brother of French Queen Marie Antoinette, and King Frederick William II were motivated by the pleas of French immigrants who had fled the country but still supported the king. Around August 1791, the rulers of Austria and Prussia issued the Declaration of Pillnitz, publicly stating their intention to invade France and restore absolute rule under the Bourbon king. So the declaration had a profound impact on the French people, for this ignites them to a renewed sense of patriotism and national pride. So in the summer of 1792, young recruits eagerly volunteered to defend their country against the foreign invader. So, from the city of Marseilles, hundreds of passionate patriots came forward singing a stirring battle hymn known as the Marseillaise. This powerful anthem was composed by Roger de Lasly. He is a young French engineer. Soon became the cherished national anthem of France, symbolizing the spirit of and determination of the French people in in the face of adversity. So, as the Austrian and Prussian forces crossed into France and approached the capital city of Paris, the ill prepared and inexperienced French army suffered a defeat. So, on July 25, 1792, the invading forces issued an ultimatum to the French people, which only serves to further infuriate the Parisians. Meanwhile, the royal family, who had previously attempted to escape France but were unsuccessful, found themselves held captive. So the mounting anger and frustrations among the Parisians reached its boiling point. So on August 10, 1792, when an enraged mob stormed the palace, resulting in the massacre of the royal guard and a violent desire to harm the royal family. So the situation was marked by intense emotion and a deep seated resentment towards the monarchy. So, as the tide of war shifted in France's favor, the French army successfully repelled the invading Austrian and Prussian forces. So, this significant victory, which occurred in September 20, 1792, marked a turning point in the conflict. So, in the aftermath, the Legislative Assembly was replaced by the National Convention, with the radical leaders assuming control. So the National Convention made decisive moves, including the abolition of the limited national monarchy and the establishment of the First French Republics on September 22. So from 1792 to 1795, the governing power in France resided with the National Convention. So, originally, the purpose of the convention was to draft a new constitution for the nation. However, instead of implementing the new charter in 1793 as planned, the convention opted to extend its own existence on a yearly basis. So, this decision allowed the convention to retain its authority and adapt to the evolving circumstances of the time. So, within the National Convention, leadership was divided between two factions: the Girondists, who were considered moderates, and the Jacobins, who were ultra radicals. Prominent figures such as Marat, Danton, and Robespierre lead the Jacobins factions. Over time, Jacobins gained control and held significant power in France. However, the rivalry between the Girondists and the Jacobins was so fierce that it led to a tragic event in 1793. Marat, a prominent Jacobin leader, was assassinated by a fanatical supporter of the Girondist faction. So, filled with the sense of triumph after their military successes, the French Republic issued a proclamation to all people across Europe, urging them to rise up against their kings and seek assistance from France. Essentially, this proclamation served as a declaration of war against all European monarchies, reflecting the revolutionary fervor that was sweeping through France. So, the growing strength and popularity of revolutionary France caused alarm among eight European monarchies, namely Austria, Prussia, England, Spain, Portugal, Holland, and Sardinia, and Naples. In response to this, these nations formed the First Coalition in 1792 to counter the influence of the new republic. However, despite facing this formidable opposition, the French people, united with unwavering patriotism, and successfully repelled the invasion of their country by foreign armies. So, under the leadership of General Camot, the French army emerged victorious in every battle, bolstering the spirit of the revolution and solidifying their determination to defend their newfound republic. Okay, so now let's move on to the execution of King Louis and the Reign of Terror. So, in December 1792, Louis XVI, the former King of France, was brought to trial and found guilty of treason. So, during this time, the French introduced a chillingly efficient method of execution known as the guillotine. On January 21, 1793, King Louis XVI was guillotined at what is now known as the Place de la Concorde in Paris. This event marked a significant turning point in the revolution. To suppress any opposition to the revolution within France, the National Convention established the powerful Committee of Public Safety on April 6, 1793. So this committee, under the dominant influence of Robespierre, employed secret agents to identify and apprehend royalists and other critics of the revolution. Unfortunately, this period became the known as the Reign of Terror. So during which approximately 20,000 individuals were executed in France. So the brutality and scale of this execution shocked the civilized world and left a lasting impact on the course of the revolution. During the Reign of Terror, notable victims included Queen Marie Antoinette and Madame Roland. So their poignant last word was, "Oh liberty, what crimes are committed in thy name?" encapsulated the tragic irony of this situation. Surprisingly, even the instigator of the Reign of Terror, Danton and Robespierre, met their own demise. So when Danton sought to end the terror, Robespierre accused him of treason. So in April 1794, Danton was condemned to die. On his way to the guillotine, he boldly proclaimed, "Vile Robespierre, you will soon follow me." Just 3 months later, Robespierre's power crumbled and he too was executed on July 28, 1794. So Danton's prophecy was fulfilled and the Reign of Terror finally came to an end, marking a pivotal moment in the history of the French Revolution. Okay, so now let us move on to our conclusion. So the French Revolution was a period of significant political and societal changes in France. The revolution began with the storming of the Bastille and led to the establishment of the French Republic. So the National Assembly made various reforms focusing on the relationship between church and state the state taking control of the Catholic Church. However, the revolution also brought about the Reign of Terror, a period of harsh measures against those considered enemies of the revolution. So the revolution had a lasting impact on French nationalism, politics, society, religion, and ideas, polarizing politics for more than a century.